Your brain is not a good repository for memories, for thought, right? It's for creative thought. And so you should be taking everything out of your brain, putting it in a system that works, whatever that's it. Like, I happen to believe his system is really great, but whatever system works, but just leave your brain to be creative. Don't make your brain be this thing that you have to continuously pull things out of. Like, it's just not, it's not the way it's designed.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Natalie, what's
Hi.
up? Thank you so much for coming on.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to chat. You said a lot of fun stuff last night at dinner, and I was like, oh, okay, well, we don't have wine, so I'm hoping that we can still talk about that stuff.
Yeah, it flows more freely with the wine.
Yeah, but that's good because that gives me the things that I get to ask you about
I'm still waiting
today.
for the conference where they're going to put me on stage with a bottle of wine and just pepper me with questions, because that'll be like the best talk I could do.
I feel like I got to start doing that.
Yeah, it's great. That's when people get the best.
Yeah,
like the best Natalie
yeah,
comes
you just
out after a glass of wine.
just as long as there's enough time to let the alcohol hit, and then just
great.
like elaborate.
I guess that's true. You should start with a glass before.
Yeah, maybe give them prep before. No, that sounds like a great conference. I would love to watch that.
That's amazing.
It's like the real deal founder conversations. So you're the co-founder, CEO, WildBit. You guys have 3 products: Beanstalk, Postmark, Conveyor.
Yep.
The new one that's yet to be announced.
Is Conveyor.
Oh, that's Conveyor.
It's announced. It's just.
Why did Chris say it?
You built something for 4 years.
Okay.
Without launching it.
You made it seem like it was like a secret.
So so we launched it, and then we kind of absorbed a ton of feedback, and then we shut down signups again.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
So we're gonna have to relaunch it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's cool is you guys are almost. Chris started it 19 years ago.
Yep.
You've been involved 16 years.
16 years, yeah.
Which is in the 0.0s. Like, not a lot of companies
Wild.
in the software space have been doing it for that long. And Chris found out that I was one of the first Beanstalk customers, which I love. A lot of people don't know I'm technical. They see me. They're like, oh, Dan's that marketing guy. It's like, no, I used to write a lot of code, and I was not early, but like, I went from Microsoft to Rails and Ruby and Mac. That was like that at that point in my life, 2007, 2008. I kind of drank the Kool-Aid. So Beanstalk was awesome. And but what I love about your guys' dynamic, so how do you guys split roles?
So I am the CEO, and he's a CTO, and the way kind of that functions in day to day is I manage what I consider like the front of the house, and so the team culture, obviously the business side of things, and kind of marketing to some degree, although we don't do that very well, and then he manages product.
You don't do that well, but you guys have a fairly successful business.
Yeah, we have no marketing team right now.
How did that happen?
Just not good. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Which part? The not having a marketing team?
Build a successful software product with not really a focus on distribution and.
Because I think timing and market plays a massive role. And when we launched Beanstalk, as you remember, there was not a lot of that kind of stuff. Like SaaS was not.
It's so interesting because it really wasn't.
No, I mean it was. I laugh because we have things like Product Hunt, right? And we're like, apps are launching by the minute. I don't know.
All day, all long.
Yeah, and we would launch. When we launched Beanstalk, it was maybe an app launched a month.
Yeah.
It was like everybody knew because it was this new thing. We actually had an integration with Basecamp, and I think at the time, like, it was like a big deal for they wrote about the integration with the Beanstalk integrates with Basecamp because that was important for them to have that connection as well. Connection with other apps, and so there was a lot that.
How much of that growth was that? A lot of the early.
The Basecamp post for us was a continuous driver of traffic for years. It was wild.
Wow.
Yeah,
but was it early? Like, what other factors were happening in the market other than just?
There's a lot of wilds when the idea behind Beanstalk, which is like hosted back then, it was just hosted at Subversion, which was the kind of
repository
of choice. Yeah, and so the plan back then was, you had to host them yourself and do all this management. We were doing all this client services work, and Chris was like, every time we had to add a user, it was a whole process. So he actually went to a bunch of friends and said, hey, would you let me host your source code? And they were like, I'm not letting you. That's ridiculous. Nobody's touching my source code. That's my source code. And that was like how unusual it was to have these hosted apps where you would, store data or do critical things.
Like your core product
Yeah, I mean, we
in
had
the
fog,
cloud.
Yeah, we had fog bugs as like our task management, installed on our, computers. I mean, it was just a different world.
So interesting.
So that our distribution was completely word of mouth. And it was all around just the fact that, hey, this is a thing. It was all early adopters, lots of Rails projects, actually, because that was also the time of, Ruby on Rails was becoming a thing, and it was written in Rails, so it became a project that was written in Rails. And so there was just like a lot of very natural word of mouth early to the market.
So Subversion, written in Rails.
Yeah.
Like all these things.
All these things that just were like, it was just natural, right? Like the people who were on the internet looking for hosted services, and they would use Beanstalk, and there really wasn't anything else. There was something called CVS Dude, which was it's not even worth it, but the different time. So that was really our kind of transition when we launched Postmark. Very similar, like we launched it to Beanstalk customers because we had we built tools for developers, so huge uptick there, and just always really focused on product. That's always been where we just find the most excitement, is just building really great products for developers, because we're developers. Well, not me, but like the team's developers, and we love building tools that we can use ourselves. So it just really just continuously. I mean, we did marketing. Like I don't think it's.
You did developer marketing. Like, I mean, you guys were, in the community. Chris was known amongst the developers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It really wasn't.
Content.
There was no like distribution channels. There was no go-to-market strategies.
Yeah.
I was on a call with somebody once. They're like, "What's your go-to-market strategy?" And I was like, "I don't know what that means. I'm in the market. What do I do? Where do I go?
I'm already in it. Do I have to go somewhere else?"
I was like, "I don't know what that means." We're getting better. I mean, you can't do that this way anymore. There's like that. If you build it, they will come is not a go-to-market strategy.
Yeah. Even in the content, they call it peak content. Like it's done. Like
creating
a blog is just not going to get attention.
So we're definitely looking at it from a different perspective now, and still very stubborn and want to do it our way. But the growth has been just completely correlated to just more customers. They talk about it. They're beloved products, right? Like Postmark is a product that people really genuinely love. Like our churn is so low, people don't leave. They just care about it. They love it. So it created its own kind of energy around that, and it just really worked for us.
And you guys have 30 employees now, or 20?
Yeah, 30. It fluctuates, but 30.
And then all remote?
So we're remote first. We started the company. The company was always remote first, but we live in Philly and have a few folks who also live in Philly. So we've had an office in Philadelphia that kind of became like where people would come and people would come and stay. And we're actually we're moving to a new space, just smaller because we don't need that much space. But I mean, remote first. Everything's remote. Most of the team's remote, but there is like a small Philly kind of area where people can come in.
And then in regards to that journey, 30 employees from like the early days, and were you what employee number, I guess, like, or was it just you and Chris? Did Chris have other people working with him?
Because he started off. So when he was like 20 years old, he started off writing some PHP and realized he was really bad at it, and so much preferred the UI stuff. And there was always contractors that kind of helped with. It was client services in the beginning. So when I came in,
is that what WildBit
started? Yeah, okay, client services, agency. Nightclubs and bars.
Nice.
It was
just
great.
Building their websites or something.
Yeah, it was great. We had so much fun. And restaurants, I guess too. There's an incredible. We used to get paid because we didn't make a lot of money, and we used to get paid by one of this great restaurant in Philly. We did their work, and they would pay us in
like just food credit.
Food, yeah.
Oh,
so we just had a house account. So that's how we ate. We had this nice Cuban restaurant in Philly, and it was like we could never afford it. So it was like so cool. You come in and like they give you a box, and you just sign your name. It's very fancy.
House account.
House account.
So
It's
cool.
pretty cool. It's like they were paying us for $2 food for like $300
you
worth
knew
of work.
they were getting
but
the better.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, so I think like in terms of employees, when we started working together, it was like it was a transition. I was in college. I did QuickBooks. It was like we were living together. I was waitressing and hostessing. That was the money we used to live, so that everything else kind of flowed back into the business. And it was like wherever I could fit in. So it was like QuickBooks or helping write proposals, and it wasn't the business really started to evolve when we got into products, and that's where I took on all the support.
How long did the agency stuff last?
So Beanstalk launched in 2007, and in I think mid 2008 it was making enough money to cover the team. And at that point, I have to look this up because everybody always asks, but I think we were like 4 or 5 people.
Okay.
And we just needed, we
So
weren't
you
going
guys
to fire
hustled
anybody.
for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it was a small team,
Yeah.
and we had a great time, but we needed it to cover, because we were still doing consulting work. So Beanstalk was one person, and then the rest of the team was doing client services work. And so we basically knew that we did not want to fire anybody, and so we had to wait until
Enough
it
revenue.
made enough revenue.
Bring somebody over.
Exactly. So we brought everybody over to Beanstalk.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was kind of cool.
And one thing you talked about last night that I thought fascinating, you said you got to learn how to pay yourself.
I'm a big fan of that. Yeah, I think...
'Cause especially for the bootstrapper, you said, look, like if somebody's asking, like, have you guys ever been approached? You're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I get approached all the time because you guys have bootstrapped. But we pay ourselves.
Yeah, I have really strong opinions around, and it's possible that it's because we got into the business for different reasons. But for me, your security of your business lies in like whether you can comfortably, like whether you feel like you're being rewarded for the work. And so what I've met so many founders and been close to so many founders who just don't pay themselves, like pay themselves last, right?
Yeah.
Or they raise money and they don't make a lot of money
Yeah.
and salary because of all this like potential upside. But what that does, it just weighs on you emotionally, and it weighs on your life, and you become very vulnerable
Yep.
to not the best outcomes, right? Like a lot of these, you either have to continuously raise money because the financial incentive just gets further and further away because everybody thinks diluted and you don't make, or, you just like, you're tired, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're tired of the hustle, or you're tired of all the work, and you're not paying yourself. And Chris and I have always paid ourselves, because the whole purpose of this business was to support our family. I still look at it to this day. Like
It's a family business.
Yeah. Any expense is coming out of my pocket, right? Like it's one
Yeah,
of
you're
those things.
taking
Like,
from
yeah.
us.
Like any hire is personally, Chris and I are paying for it. Like it's
Yeah.
coming out. I mean, we obviously separate the finances and all these things, but it is absolutely an impact on us personally. And what we've done to make sure that we can secure our position is we make sure that we pay ourselves, so that this way, when we do get, I don't take a lot of meetings, but like we've done a few where they were really strategic, and we're like, let's just hear what people have to say. And our number is so high, and I tell the team this all the time, our number is so high because Chris and I pay ourselves. And like, I don't need it.
It's not going to change your lifestyle.
Yeah, and it's incredible the power that brings. Like, and I talk to people about this all the time. Like in those conversations that we've had, the instinct on the people you're meeting with, or at least in our experience, the people that we meet with, are really expecting you to be exhausted, just burn out, poor, and will take some really crappy multiple.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, I've actually sat at a table and they were like, "You guys must be so tired," and we were like, "No, we're great."
No, I
and
just
you
got
could
off the
literally
sabbatical.
see their
What are you talking about?
Well, that's pre-sabbatical.
I do want to talk about that.
But the face changed.
Yeah.
Because they instantly knew, like, never mind, I'm not scooping this up for real cheap. And I think that's a superpower, right?
Yeah.
Because acquisitions are really sexy to talk about, but the numbers behind them a lot of times are not. They're not great for the founders. So for us, it's a very important thing. And it's like my number one thing when I talk to founders, like, are you happy? Oh, I ask 2 questions. Are you having fun? And are you paying yourself? Because that's your security. That's the armor that you need to be able to do this for a long time. Because that's what people ask me, like, how do you do this for 19 years? I'm like, having a lot of fun.
Don't burn yourself out.
And we pay ourselves.
And is it an aspect of having to learn to value? Do you think it's people don't value their contribution, or they feel, or you think it's just delayed? They feel like they got to earn
guilt.
it.
I think there's a tremendous amount of guilt. Like there's this whole, I'm growing this business. I need to see it. I need to pay myself last, and I need to make sure that, everybody, that money could be used for marketing or whatever, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And inventory if you're in a traditional business, like all these kind of things. And they miss the fact that, like, the longer you do that, and those things, I mean, like I said, like I waitress, and that's what we lived off of. We had very little expenses back then. But the longer you do it, the more vulnerable you get, because you get tired and you're like, what am I doing this for? Why am I?
All my friends are growing up and going on vacations and buying
like,
cool stuff.
Exactly.
And I'm still
it's
grinding.
like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And the numbers don't look good, right? The statistics are against us.
100%.
So
It's so rare.
yeah, like we make money, and that's really important for us.
And how do you guys, because you mentioned profit sharing, how do you reconcile that?
Yeah, so our profit sharing removes anything Chris and I take out of the business.
Okay.
So totally just pure profits of the products
Okay,
and their
so you
hard
pretty
work.
much say, like, here's a pool of money that is the profit.
Yep.
that's what we're divvying out.
Exactly.
Okay, so they don't see top line revenue and.
No. They see the full P&L is there, but like anything, like I'll just withdraw like our salary, like even just our base salaries. I withdraw everything out of the so that they are not like.
Okay, so they just see it as an expense. So it's not like it's a blended. They don't really know.
I mean that I inflate the actual bottom line profits. They're more than what like the P&L would show because they don't lose out on profit sharing
because
I take a salary.
Okay, got it.
So it's actually inflated. So it's higher that way.
Okay.
This way it removes any of my like kind of how much should I pay myself and all that. Like they don't care. It doesn't matter. It's the profits of the business. And then Chris and I pay ourselves a salary from that. Awesome. From like the total number. So no, our P&L is fully transparent except for a blended salary line for the whole team.
Yeah.
That's the only non-transparent piece of the pie.
And then that way they can make their own decisions around growing and resources and.
Yeah, we've always believed. I think the team, and it's been even more interesting. So the last couple of years we've run really lean. We've been growing the product Postmark ahead of growth, and like ahead of revenue, and so that's been a really. I felt like a lot of pressure. I don't want them to be stressed out or upset. Like that's my stress. Like I know this is the right decision, but I don't. And it was incredible to see the team like really rally and be really supportive of that. Yes, we're investing ahead. Yes, profit sharing is really low, but we know it's going to get there. And like there was that was really cool for me to see that we are in this together because that was the point of the transparency was to show it's just in a business that's been around for 19 years. It's always been up, 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 up. It's like when you start seeing that go down, I didn't have that experience to see how the team would react. And our team was like, yes, we all agree.
That was a concern.
I had anxiety, right? Like I feel I like those big bonuses and I want them to continue to get bigger. And so for me, it's like, hey, I made the call ultimately that we're going to invest ahead and lose some of that was like not have those profits for that, year and a half. Yeah. But I know it's the right choice, but it was my decision ultimately. So I had that anxiety. Do they? Yeah, are they? And they were, of course. And it's been really cool to see. Actually, that transparency really helps them see and feel a part of it. And the downs are when they feel the most a part of it, right? When it's like, yes, we're in this together. We're rallying for this. We know we believe in this product and that we're making the right calls. And so it was really interesting.
So having you and Chris in the business for this long is pretty rare. Like I don't know a lot of couples. I don't know if I could run a company with my wife. Love her, but it's just we're different personalities. And then children come along, right? So you have two girls. Yeah, two daughters. How has that impacted the dynamics of the work, or like how do you think of like the concept of integration or balance around, like dividing and conquer between you and Chris, and like how do you do it as an entrepreneurial mom?
I think the reason we work so well together is we're actually extremely good at like different things, and it complements each other really well. So that just flows right into our personal lives. And one of the joys of running a business together is that as an entrepreneur, I really believe you never turn it off. Like even if I'm not working, like it's just somewhere in my brain thinking about it.
Background.
And the fact that we can bring it home in a way that's empowering. Like I have two daughters, right? So their mom's the CEO of a successful software company, all these things like that's empowering for them. And so we talk about work at home at the dinner table. We all go around the room and talk about our days.
And how old are your daughters now?
I have a 9-year-old and a almost 5-year-old.
Okay.
But we talk about our days. We do this thing called Rose, Thorn, Bud, where we talk about like a rose, a thorn, and a bud from our day. And ours are work on Monday through Thursday. And so they hear about people challenges, because they know some of our team. They hear about projects we've launched and features we've launched, and things like that. And I think it's really important. And we don't compete in that way. Like we don't have two different businesses that we have to compete for attention or whatever. And then we are very equal partners, Chris and I, in every aspect of our life, and that very much translates at home. And there's no this is my job, and this is like we definitely have things like I'll figure out what's for dinner, but he'll figure out like what the kids are doing with after school activities, and we're extremely equal in our homes. And that's just, I think, again, because we run the business together, there's no
flows into the house.
Yeah, it just flows into the house. We're very equal parents. He's like, we don't have kind of those gender like I don't feel like I'm a working mom and he's not, like he's also a working dad. Like we're very much the same in that way.
I love that, working dad. I don't feel like anybody's ever called me that, but I'm definitely a working dad.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he does. He's like
like I do night routine every night. Pick up the kids.
We take turns. Yeah, we take turns on the kids. We swap the kids, but because they sleep in different rooms. But no, I mean everything. Like it's not, you know, if I'm too busy for dinner, like he'll make dinner, and you know, there's really no lines.
And then how have you guys kind of leveraged the business to kind of support your family? Do you have like help, or how does that?
Yes, we've always had help.
So talk about that, because I know that my wife, you know, she, even when this is early days of like having somebody clean the house, she was like, there was guilt because it's, you know, her mom, like, and not, her mom never said anything. It just literally was just her perception of what her mom would think, right? So then to go to, you know, to the nanny, to the house manager level, you know.
So when Chris and I were dating, we only ever fought over one thing, and we almost never fight, and we only fought over one thing when we were dating, and that was always cleanliness. He's like obsessed with cleaning, and I'm much like, I've gotten older, and I really appreciate a smooth, like clean countertop. Yeah. But I just wasn't like that. Like, so, you know, I can put the cup away tomorrow. Like, he needs to put the cup away before bed.
I'm the same. He cleans the house before he goes to bed, so that it's like that.
Yeah.
Wow, so cool.
Yeah, and that was the only thing we ever fought about. So one of the first things we did when we had no money was we had somebody come clean the house every other week, and I forget what it cost, maybe like $60 every other week. And we basically looked at it like that's one less dinner out. Yeah. Or one less night drinking. We were young. Yeah. But that meant we don't fight, and that also meant that we got to spend the whole day together. So like, otherwise it was a Sunday, and it was like, all right, you clean the toilet. We lived in this cool, like, and that was a choice, right? That's not it was very much, we could find that money in just by not doing something. We really didn't have a lot. Like, we literally lived off of my waitressing and kind of hostessing. Is that a word? Hostessing, yeah. Salary. So it was just a choice we made. Like, that was an expense that allowed us to spend time together. So we've always carried that through, because for me, it's experience. Like, you know, I want to have those times with the kids and with Chris, and those experiences matter. And I try to choose where our priorities lie. So the kids we had a nanny for both kids. It's life-changing.
Did you have a night nanny?
No.
It's magical.
Yeah, but our kids slept through the night pretty early.
That's not fair.
I'm sorry.
That's awesome, though.
We can talk about parenting later. My mom is...
I want to talk about now. This is the kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I'm from Russia, and so like we actually did like a very strict schedule very early on, like feeding, and didn't do the 3 a.m. feeding very early on.
Figured it out real quick.
And they were real fast. But that was my mom. Thank God for my mom. I don't know. She was just like, at first I was like, no, I can't do that. And then like, you're not sleeping for a week. You're like, I can do that. Tell me how to do that. And she's like, here's how we do it. And we just kept I was better as a mom on a schedule. So like for me, it was, we would do feedings 6 a.m., 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9, 12, and then skip to 3 a.m. But that meant I would wake them up, so I wouldn't let them nap too long. Like, I'd make sure that they're fed, so I knew comfortably that they weren't hot, like they got all the food that they needed. And we did that with both, and that worked really well for us.
And what other stuff do you have support to allow you to? Because what I love about it is like, look, I'm spending money to buy time to then go spend with my family, or I'm going to work. Like, do you guys have an executive assistant? Do you have?
No, it's one thing I've always wanted. It's very strange, but Chris and I don't have personal email addresses.
Mm-hmm.
Never have.
You just have one inbox?
One inbox. And
that's fascinating.
And
I see those people
with
the Facebook accounts where it's like Ben and Jane on Facebook. And I'm like,
no, I didn't mean, no, not, we don't have the same, like it's Natalie at WildBit, and then there's a Chris at WildBit. Okay. There's no personal, like there's no Natalie at Gmail. Like there's no Natalie.
You don't. Okay, it's always been the company.
So it's always been the company.
Okay, but you don't share an email.
No, that would be ridiculous.
Well, that's what I was like, that's fascinating.
No. He would die in my inbox.
Yeah.
No. But the personal assistant was always so hard because our work emails are tied, there's like a privacy security thing, and I couldn't separate them. And so I think we just got emails set. I think he just set up, set up. He's like, we need to separate these
personal, some Gmails.
Yeah. And then, but I really want an executive assistant. No, I don't have one.
It's a game changer.
I know. Everybody tells me, all my friends are like, you're stupid. You need one. I don't have that. We have help at home. So the kids are in school. We have somebody who kind of almost like a house manager. Yeah. She takes care of a lot of the stuff, birthday presents for birthday parties for kids. Like the kids get invited to birthday parties, helping me plan parties, just like stuff like that, ordering groceries. Yeah,
things that you'd have to do on a Saturday.
I'm a big, we don't even have the kids do activities on Saturdays.
You do the 4-day work week.
We do 4-day work week.
How long has that been going on?
2 years.
Okay.
We're in our 3rd year.
And what was the impetus behind that?
There's a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport.
Oh, I know.
I send 2 books to everybody who comes to WildBit, and that's one of them.
Yeah. What's the other one?
Getting Things Done by
Nice.
David Allen.
Yeah. I met David in 2007. I have a picture of the young Dan at a workshop, and the dude, he's awesome.
He's extremely generous with his time. He just did an entire hour workshop with our team.
I don't know why people don't get on the GTD way. Back in the day, there was whole 43 folders. You remember it? There was all these tools for
OmniFocus.
Yeah, OmniFocus.
Still around, still great. Yeah, those 2 books in particular, because my feeling is that I can do as much as I can to enable focus work from a team perspective, but it's every individual's responsibility to be individually productive.
All right.
Right? I can't tell. And I'm a strong believer that everybody does things differently. One of the reasons GTD never caught on to some of our engineering team is because their work is very linear, and they don't have these
other
tons
things.
of projects that live in their life. Where me, I'm always, I'm juggling personal projects, nonprofits, boards and things like that. There's always this stuff. And so having that is the only way that my brain can function. But the book to me is, the methodology is extremely important, but the perspective or the kind of the view that your brain is not a good repository for memories, for thought, right? It's for creative thought. And so you should be taking everything out of your brain, putting it in a system that works, whatever that's it. I happen to believe his system is really great, but whatever system works, but just leave your brain to be creative. Don't make your brain be this thing that you have to continuously pull things out of. It's just not, it's not the way it's designed. Right. So I think, anyway, that's why I send those 2 books. But in Cal's book, he talks a lot about the brain's capacity for the science around the brain's capacity for deep work. And so at WildBit, everything is we're just obsessed with focus work. It's everything we do. It's all around I just believe so much in my heart that my job is to create an environment where people can get their best work done and really push themselves past their comfort zone so that they are really proud of their work and feel really fulfilled. And so you can't do that if you don't have the opportunity to actually do good work, right? And people tell me all the time, I do my best work at night. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. It's because you're not working during the day, you're distracted, all these things. So we've always had a very strong stance against open office floor plans. We've always had closed offices, even when we had the Philly space. I don't let remote team members work out of a coffee shop 4 days a week. They have to have a quiet space. So there's just a lot of stuff like that. So when the Deep Work book is so great because it gives you real perspective on what it is that you get paid to do, right? Why are we here? What is our job? That work needs to be priority. We have to create so much space for it. And so when he looks at the science behind your brain's capacity for deep work, it shows that our brain is a muscle, and after about 4 hours, it's fatigued and doesn't do good work anymore. And 4 hours is actually really hard. That's writers and people who think for a living, right?
Creatives.
And if you look back, right, there's always the stories somebody the big writers wake up at 6 a.m., they work till 10 and they're done, right?
Yeah.
They're done.
Yeah.
And
Stephen King, a bunch of
and it's and their day is done because they know that that's
the best you're going to get from me today.
And that's amazing. And so we looked at it and said, well, what are we doing for 40 hours? Because 5 times 4 is 20. So what's 40 hours look like? And what is are we getting our best work done? Are we thinking about why? So we did it as an experiment to say, I'll just drop a day and see what happens. And it wasn't.
Was it a forcing function in some ways to get the focus? 'Cause that's the other thing. It's the day before you travel. For me, it's so productive because you're trying to get.
Yeah. I mean, I think I definitely love experiments. We're always experimenting with how we work. So, and most of the time it's on the extreme to just see what breaks. So we turn off Slack for a month. What's going to break? Let's see what happens. And so I think we just, I want to, we're big on just testing it and not hypothesizing all the ways in which it's going to fail. It's let's just see what happens and what's the worst that happens,
So what was the byproduct of the 4-day work week?
Oh my God, we got so much more work done.
More work got done.
So much more work done. And such better quality work.
My team may be thanking you in a week because I might do it.
Here's the thing. I think we all this is the same with having somebody help you around the house, right?
Yeah.
Those are choices. We're making choices in how we spend our time, and what we work on, and those are conscious choices. Everything you say yes to, you say no to something else, right? There are conscious choices, and so we looked at it and said, okay, well, if we're only working 4 days a week, what are we working on? and why? And that became this like driving force, right? And it's like, where are we spending our time? Are you focused? Are you getting enough hours, right? Are you, on a remote team in different time zones? It's very, it's not talked about a lot, but meetings are way more disruptive because they're in different time zones, and they could really impact somebody's ability to get into flow and have really focused work. So my 9 a.m. could be somebody's 2 p.m. or somebody's noon, right? Or whatever those things are. And that could just completely derail, right? Like an 11 a.m. meeting for somebody, in my view, is almost a complete derailment unless they're a morning person and they got like a solid couple hours in the morning.
Yeah.
Right? At 10:30, right? Like my morning's gone. I
don't
do some busy work.
Till 2.
Brilliant, right? Because it's like, what do you...
I want my creative time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, really reimagined and reevaluated meetings and how we function. And
it's energy flow.
Yeah, I'm just such a focus work is everything. We just
I love
obsess
that
about it.
you didn't just do it for yourself, but you said, hey, this is what I want for people that want to work here, and let me create that environment. Because,
WildBit is the product of 28 really incredible people, and I'm excluding Chris and like they are the reason it exists. They are the reason all the products are as good as they are. The reason our support is world class. They're everything. And my job is just to create an environment where they can be really, really successful. That's all I do. That's why I exist, right? To create this space for them.
That environment.
So like it's all for them.
What happened when you turned off Slack for a month?
'Cause
I fought Slack a long time. I thought this is a distraction. I'm the same way. I'm like, I teach my team like how to do email properly so that, and I don't like when they're super responsive, and I
love email.
Yeah. And
Not
it's just
because
like,
I do email for a living.
Yeah, but it's just like, then Slack, I was like, oh, I can see a few use cases where it makes sense to kind of capture knowledge.
So this isn't our first Slack experiment, and I'll tell you that the second
Did you guys ever use like Campfire back in the day?
All of it.
Yeah.
So Slack's not interesting to me as a product in
it's
general.
Actually interesting that it's successful now when you've seen all these.
We used Campfire, we used
HipChat.
Yeah, remote team, you have to use something. So we used AIM at one point. People probably don't know that. AOL.
No clue. Bunch of
AOL Instant Messenger.
AIM,
AOL was a
what is that?
I know.
She speaks of.
I know. I sometimes show my age. The Slack experiment is interesting because for us, this second time around, we did it last year for a week. We turned it off. That was super impactful, where we realized how much we used as a whole. The team uses Slack to procrastinate. So it's not even the disruption. Like, we're pretty good at keeping the noise down. Everybody's got their notifications
they'll plug
off.
in when they want it. Yeah.
But the procrastination enabler was wild. And it was basically like, people were saying, like, I found myself faced with a hard problem, right? That part of your brain's like, I don't want to do a hard problem. Let me find something that feeds it, right? And they would like flip to Slack. Slack wasn't there. And it's like, oh, I got up and went to take a walk. And you tell me what's better for solving that hard problem, scrolling through Slack or taking a walk, right? It's the same. Slack's no different than like Facebook obsessions and Instagram obsessions. I deleted all that shit. I don't have any of that stuff anymore. And it's like, they're just not valuable, depending on what you're going for. But if you're going for the ability to have creative thought, to work as little as possible because you're getting such good work done. Then like that stuff is useless. The second time around, so we learned a lot in that one week, and everybody kind of adjusted their expectations. The second time around for the month, we actually missed it. And so it's back, but we are a remote team, and that is how we connect, for better or worse. And it's not a good way to connect, but there was just this feeling of loneliness that everybody had, almost collectively everybody had. There's a connectivity aspect. Even if we weren't actively in it, there was just, that was a thread that connected all of us all over the world to like a single home. And that I think is still really important. But I don't want that to come off like Slack is the solution to loneliness in remote work, because I very much believe Slack is enabling loneliness in remote work, because so many companies are just relying on that to be like, oh, we have Slack and a general channel and a cat meme channel or whatever, right? Like all this stuff. Our experience has been that you have to be really intentional in remote work and creating opportunities for people to connect. I call it like the intentional water cooler. Like you have to really, really work hard. Yeah, all these things. Slack, if you just leave it, you basically get a general thread. Hey, Bye. You know, it's like, I mean, it's useless, right? It's
Yeah.
completely useless because especially in different time zones, you know, and if you're optimizing focus work, you don't want to have Slack open all the time. So for us, only because we're obsessed with that stuff, like we had removed all the typical Slack issues, like having an inbox, you know, second inbox where people are posting things you have to read back. Like Slack has always been for disposable conversation.
Yeah.
Never for anything permanent, never for anything that anybody ever has to read
reference,
back.
yeah.
It's synchronous communication. That's it. It's not historical anything. And we err on the side of asynchronous as much as possible so that people can work in their own time and on their own schedules. So it was actually fine. I mean, we need something that connects the whole team. That was the big learning for me. Mm-hmm. Something that like is a single thread that, you know, you just know that if I needed to, it's kind of like a security blanket. If I needed to,
go plug in to feel connected to the team.
Right.
You mentioned last night about hiring a coach or having support. To what happened in the business, like what problems showed up, and you know, how did you find the person and what did they do to help you?
Chris and I have been going through this for the last, I guess, 4 years, going through this journey of elevating the business where it's not the Chris and Natalie show, right? It's like a mature, thoughtful business that involves everybody that doesn't, you know, if Chris and I fall out of an airplane, like,
because that's a risk. I mean, if something happens to you and
we're always
Chris,
together.
like you have 28 people
who I don't want them to have to just sell the thing.
Okay.
Right. And like, I don't all that. So that is an extreme example, but also like I want the business to not need me. Like I'm a bottleneck in so many areas. So that, especially 4 years ago. So we went through this kind of big soul searching, and it's been like a full circle of everything. And it started with really like, what are our roles? Like there was before that coach, before we started working through stuff, we were in every decision together, every meeting together.
Both of you?
Both of us.
Even though you had CTO and kind of CEO?
No, we didn't have those titles. We were just Chris and Natalie. We
came.
didn't have titles, and it was just Chris and Natalie. Everything.
Prioritization. Hiring.
Everything.
Wow.
Everything.
And just because you didn't know any different?
No, well, you know, that coaching was very much like marriage counseling in a sense where it was.
I can see that.
Those are hard conversations that, you know, you got to tread lightly on them. You have to be really intentional around them. Like, what do you actually want to do? You know, this is Chris's business for a long time. Like, that's how I always viewed it. This is Chris's business. He started it. I came into it, you know, all these things. And having those, like, really meaningful conversations were like, no, actually, Natalie, like, I don't want to do it. I want you to run the company. I just want to work on product. Like that's what, you know, and having those dialogues around like, you know, Chris will say like, I don't think the business could ever gotten to this point if it was just me, like if it was just him, because like, I don't want these things that we do. You know, I wouldn't be able to be good at these people things and culture things and all these things that like I really enjoy. So we're lucky in that way. But the coach was really, you know, one of his first things was like, so tell me what you guys do here. It's like, well, we do all the things. And he's like, okay, well, co-CEO is a thing, but let's just, you know, let's keep working through that. And it's not even that he had like a process, or it was just, I was saying this to somebody earlier, it was the value of sitting down for a day, focusing on the business. I couldn't, you know, I was paying him to come here, so like I needed his help, and I'm going to make an effort out of it.
Yeah.
And just asking a lot of questions, making us think about things. And so that was kind of the big first step was, okay, CEO, CTO, got it. This is your responsibility. We like drew it out. We mind mapped it. We did a ton of stuff to just really grasp like, well, what is that in a day-to-day? What is a CEO?
Was your team asking you for that?
They were much happier when they knew which one of us to go to. That was a huge shift because it was like, well, product, for example. Chris is deep in the product, and then all of a sudden it's like Natalie jumps in at the 11th hour, and I actually have a really good eye for stuff, and I'm not really good at like the detail, but they'll send me something at the end and I'm like, that doesn't make sense, you know, or that flow, and it's like, well, should we have included Natalie earlier? And so now, you know, and it's just like this whole confusing thing, and now it's like Chris's product. That's what he does. And so he brings me in when he feels like he could use a little bit of Natalie, but rarely, they're so much smarter than I am, but that kind of became a thing. And then there was all the people stuff, right? Like, who's my manager? And we've been flat until January of this year. So January 2019, before that we were flat. So it was like, who's my manager? Is it Chris? Is it Natalie? Who do I talk to when I have a problem?
Yeah. Career development.
And it's like, talk to both of them. Right. Yeah. And it's like, what do you do with that? That's just crazy. So that was really huge. And then we just kept working through, I mean, as recently as last year, like working through an operating system. How do we want to operate? How do we plan? How do we structure, meetings?
Essentially
and
designing the business.
the whole business. Yeah.
Just like you do product
yeah.
applied to the
Yeah.
business.
Well, the business is the product.
Yeah.
And for us, it's especially acute because we have multiple products, but we have WildBit. And so I look
Yeah.
at WildBit as its own very important product.
That's unique too. Like not a lot.
Yeah.
Like how
I think it's our superpower, honestly. It's the
okay.
reason we've been
the
able
ability.
to.
Yeah. When you said that I didn't want to fire anybody and you were like transitioning people over, I'm like, that's really disciplined. Like that's.
And it's also because like a lot of companies, it's an idea, a founder, co-founder, and then they grow a team, right? So that idea is the thing that's holding them together. So if the idea doesn't pan out, then the team disbands, right? We were WildBit that had a bunch of ideas, and we've shut some down. We've sold some, right? Like we've had more than just the suite that we have. And so WildBit has always stayed together. I've never sold a product with a team. It's always ever been the technology. I've never shut something down and fired people. Like we've moved people over, but it's also we have incredible longevity on the team, and I really attribute that to the ability for people to move around and work on different things. There's like this real people have worked on Conveyor who now work on Postmark, who've worked on Beanstalk, and there's just this flow. And while we say like we don't put people in boxes, so there really is this not just you don't have to be working on the product. You can also, if you don't want to be a developer, or work in this stack, like let's talk about that. Let's figure out how to help you work in a new stack, or maybe you want to write for a little bit. Whatever those things are, we try to find out. But because we have the space and like the capacity to say, hey, there's this and there's this, and there are different times in their life, or the products are in different life cycles. So you get a little more startup-y here, a little more growth-focused here, and you can really just, to me, that's not only diversifying our risk, but also it's creating an environment where people almost can get new jobs and not leave WildBit.
Yeah.
And we get to like
continuity is so powerful.
So powerful.
Huh. As you look back over the 19, almost 20 years, well, not 16, sorry. But you'll be 20 years, 16 years being CEO, co-founder with Chris. Who did you need to become to continue leading this like the company? Like your own beliefs, mindsets?
Man, that's a powerful question. So I went through this whole, I'm actually really young. And so like when
you said you just turned 27.
33.
You never told us. We didn't ask.
Oh, 33. But so like you can, I'm young, right? And so like there was a tremendous amount of imposter syndrome that I struggled with for a long time. I'm also not a developer, and I'm running it, and I'm pretty knowledgeable now because I've been doing this for so long, but I'm not a developer. And so there was just a tremendous amount of imposter syndrome. And with that comes that insecurity of like, are the things that I really strongly believe in, are they valid? And I, I can say now that like, yes, like so much of what WildBit is like my beliefs and how people should be treated, how work should happen, why, the kind of what I call like the audacity to think that we can be responsible for 30 families, right? And that's a lot of people. And like all these things is very much for a long time was this, I felt really insecure about who am I and why do I think I can do this? And there's like just a tremendous growth that was really necessary, and it was hard at times. I think what's happening now is I'm realizing that I've also had this very singular experience where I've worked with people who have to say yes to me, right? Let's just call it like we have disagreements and all these things, but at the end of the day, I'm their boss. Yeah. I've created an environment in my community, in this space where people respect me and listen to me and all these things. And that's not really the real world. Like there's a lot more I can and I should experience to not be in that space. So I've been trying over the last 2 years really to get out of, to create opportunities where I'm not just solely like in this space where my thoughts are really great and everybody loves them. And it's like, okay, cool. And start making myself a little more uncomfortable again and almost kind of creating that imposter syndrome again to see how better I can develop in being a better leader and a better, like more well-rounded person. So I've been doing some work on some nonprofits. I'm the chair of the board of like a small nonprofit school that I'm really passionate about. And, that's an example where I'm nobody, right? Like I've got 15 volunteer board members who are really excited about the school, but they have their own jobs. They're very successful. I got to get on the phone and talk to them, right? I'm not like texting them or slacking them. And there's just I do this thing called EO, which is Entrepreneurs Organization, which is, like a forum that you meet with 7 or 8 other entrepreneurs, and they're not in tech, right? That's the whole mission, is like that you're in different industries. And, they're talking about manufacturing, but we have the same problems, but in a different lens. And that helps ground me a little bit to be like, yeah, I'm not that special. This isn't that unique, and those, I think I've been trying to force myself, and I enjoy them very much, but trying to force myself into these other experiences so that I can be more well-rounded. I was having a conversation with somebody recently about how we've built this business of people that, like, we've surrounded ourselves with customers and employees and everybody that we like, that we respect, right? I don't allow nonsense. Like, our 10th value is don't be an asshole. Like, I don't allow it in my personal life, right? Like, I don't have friends with drama. Our family is really stable. Like, when something happens that is outside of that, it pierces me, like completely paralyzes me. I don't have the experience. Like, if somebody's trying to pull something on me, or like we're negotiating something or something, and the person's not
ethical.
Yeah, I lose it. I have I don't have those experiences that people have to be able to be like, okay, I'll deal with that. And I don't, that's probably not I have to start building that thicker skin to have those experiences, to be better at reacting to them, to look at them, as Ray Dalio said, like, as another one of those, right? Like, I need to start having, and so that's been really important.
Dealing with bigger problems.
Or just different problems, right? The conversation I was having was like talking about negotiating like a real estate thing, and the person at the other end of the table was maybe they read Art of the Deal, I don't know, but they were very much like, I'm gonna squeeze every last ounce out of you. Yeah. And it's just not the way I work. It's not the way I think. It's like, I'm happiest at a deal when we are like both excited and we're like, yes, like this is great, right? And I'm a great negotiator. That's not the point, but it's always around like, let's come to something that we're all excited about. And in that scenario, I was basically like, just take it. I don't, it's just too much, it's too much for me. I don't want to deal with that type of person. I'll never deal with you again. Yeah. And like, that was it. I'd like to be a little better at handling that, because I probably, got taken a little bit. But those are the kind of experiences where, for some people, it's just run of the mill. I always have these conversations where I get so like, how can this person be like this? And I'll talk to somebody and they're like, what do you mean? It's just a person. All people suck. I was like, no. Most people don't actually suck. But I think it's just it'll create a more well-rounded person. It'll make me a little bit more able to react to these things so that they feel as natural as some of the things I deal with at work. Mm-hmm. That, somebody who's just starting out, it's like, oh, I have to deal with this people thing. And I'm like, yeah, it's easy. We just kind of, you do this and you do that. That feels natural to me because I've had these experiences. So I think, that's a long way of saying, I just have to be a better person, right? Like, put
yourself in the positions to get more reps around that stuff.
That's it. I mean, so I think the actively seeking it out has been really important to just kind of continue to evolve.
Where do people find you online, Natalie?
Twitter is probably the only social network.
That's the one.
The only one left.
You still plug into.
That's the only one. Just Natalie Nagele on Twitter, or Natalie WildBit.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's been great to have you on here. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Cool.
Thanks for watching this episode of Escape Velocity. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment with your biggest insight from our conversation. Be sure to check out the next episode.